On Saturday morning, former prosecutor Katie Phang and Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel ridiculed Donald Trump's 27-year-old press secretary Karoline Leavitt for making bold pronouncements to the press about constitutional law that have no basis in fact. During a recent press availability, Trump's spokesperson asserted the Trump administration is fighting back by appealing, fighting back by using the full weight of the White House counsel's office and our lawyers at the federal government who believe that this fired federal workers' injunction is entirely unconstitutional. And it is, for anybody who has a basic understanding of the law, she claimed. You cannot have a low-level district court judge filing an injunction to usurp the executive authority of the President of the United States. That is completely absurd. And as the executive of the executive branch, the President has the ability to fire or hire. And you have these lower-level judges who are trying to block this president's agenda. It's very clear. After sharing the clip of Leavitt, MSNBC host and lawyer Phang mocked her as apparently amateur constitutional lawyer Karoline Leavitt. Later during the segment, Nessel asked if she could address Leavitt, who has a BA degree in communications after attending St. Anselm College on a Division II softball scholarship. Firstly, I don't know where she got her law degree, Nessel began as Phang smiled. I suspect it was at Trump University Online, but she is clearly misstating what the role of the courts are, right? These are three co-equal branches of government, she continued. I understand that one of the branches, the legislature, Congress has sort of abdicated seemingly their entire role in this process, but the courts are doing their job. And even, quote, low-level federal judges who are federal district court judges, they have the ability to issue injunctive relief, and the executive branch must abide by it. So it's deeply concerning to me to hear the president's own press secretary indicating that they may decide to do otherwise. In a recent appearance on MSNBC, Karoline Leavitt, Donald Trump's 27-year-old press secretary, found herself on the receiving end of a sharp and merciless critique from legal experts who took issue with her bold and inaccurate claims regarding constitutional law. The exchange occurred during a segment where Leavitt was defending the Trump administration's stance on a legal battle involving fired federal workers and a controversial injunction issued by a district court judge. Leavitt, who previously worked as a communications director for Rep. Elise Stefanik and briefly held a position in the Trump White House, has earned a reputation for being a fiery spokesperson and a staunch defender of the former president's policies. However, during her latest press availability, she ventured into legal territory that would soon become a stumbling block for her credibility. Leavitt's remarks came in response to an ongoing legal dispute in which a district court judge had issued an injunction related to the firing of federal workers. In her statement, she boldly claimed that the injunction was entirely unconstitutional and argued that lower-level judges should not have the authority to usurp the executive branch's power. The Trump administration is fighting back by appealing, fighting back by using the full weight of the White House counsel's office and our lawyers at the federal government who believe that this injunction is entirely unconstitutional, Leavitt told reporters. And it is, for anybody who has a basic understanding of the law, she continued, before going on to claim that you cannot have a low-level district court judge filing an injunction to usurp the executive authority of the President of the United States. Her statement set off alarm bells for legal experts, who were quick to point out her glaring misunderstanding of constitutional law. According to Leavitt, the president had the absolute authority to hire or fire individuals within the executive branch, and thus, lower-level judges were overstepping their bounds by issuing rulings that blocked the president's agenda. As Leavitt's comments circulated in the media, they quickly drew the ire of MSNBC host Katie Phang and Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, who both immediately seized the opportunity to correct her errors and mock her for what they perceived as an amateurish understanding of constitutional principles. Katie Phang, a former prosecutor and legal analyst for MSNBC, was the first to respond to Leavitt's remarks. With a mix of sarcasm and legal acumen, Phang ridiculed Leavitt's attempt at constitutional interpretation. Apparently, we now have an amateur constitutional lawyer in the White House, Phang quipped, referencing Leavitt's apparent confidence in her legal expertise despite her lack of any formal legal training. You can just hear the arrogance, can't you? Karoline Leavitt, the press secretary, out here with her so-called expertise on constitutional law, claiming that she understands the law better than the very judges who have the constitutional authority to issue rulings. Fang's comments were laced with irony, as she pointed out that Leavitt, a communications major with no formal legal education, was making sweeping claims about legal principles that she clearly had no basis to support. For Fang, the notion that an unelected press secretary with no legal qualifications could undermine the role of the judiciary was both alarming and absurd. "She's clearly not a lawyer," Fang added, "but here she is, playing one on TV, and it's just not working out well for her." Following Fang's remarks, Dana Nessel, the Michigan Attorney General and a former prosecutor, jumped in to provide a more detailed and legalistic rebuttal to Leavitt's claims. Nessel, who has spent years practicing law and fighting for justice in Michigan, took particular issue with Leavitt's fundamental misunderstanding of the separation of powers and the role of the judiciary in interpreting the Constitution. "Firstly, I don't know where she got her law degree," Nessel began, a wry smile on her face as she addressed the press secretary's lack of legal credentials. "I suspect it was from Trump University Online, but clearly she is misstating what the role of the courts are." Nessel emphasized that the United States operates under a system of three co-equal branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. The judiciary, she pointed out, is empowered by the Constitution to issue rulings that may limit the actions of the executive branch, particularly when those actions are seen as violating the law or the Constitution itself. "These are three co-equal branches of government," Nessel continued. "I understand that one of the branches, the legislature, Congress, has sort of abdicated seemingly their entire role in this process, but the courts are doing their job, and even, quote, low-level federal judges, who are federal district court judges, have the ability to issue injunctive relief, and the executive branch must abide by it." Nessel's comments struck at the heart of Leavitt's error. The judiciary is not only entitled but obligated to check the actions of the executive branch when those actions overstep constitutional boundaries. Judges at all levels of the federal court system, including district courts, have the authority to issue injunctions and rulings that can temporarily block executive orders or actions if they are found to be unconstitutional or illegal. For her to suggest that these judges don't have the power to issue such rulings is deeply concerning, Nessel added. "It's a misunderstanding of the checks and balances that our government was founded on, and it could have serious consequences if people start believing that the executive branch can simply disregard the decisions of the judiciary." Leavitt's comments were not just an embarrassing display of constitutional ignorance, they also raised concerns about the Trump administration's approach to the rule of law. By suggesting that the president could simply ignore court rulings that stand in the way of his agenda, Leavitt was undermining the very foundation of American democracy, the system of checks and balances that ensures no one branch of government becomes too powerful. For Nessel and Fang, the situation was particularly troubling because it reflected a broader pattern of undermining judicial independence and disregarding the authority of the courts. In recent years, under the leadership of Donald Trump, there has been a growing tendency among his supporters to reject unfavorable court rulings and question the legitimacy of judges, particularly those appointed by presidents from opposing political parties. By claiming that district court judges have no right to issue injunctions that affect the executive branch, Leavitt was echoing a larger narrative that seeks to delegitimize the judiciary's role in holding the president accountable. Fang also warned of the potential long-term impact of such rhetoric on public trust in the judicial system. "It's dangerous when public figures, especially those in the executive branch, start undermining the role of the courts," she said. "It chips away at the public's faith in the very institutions that are supposed to safeguard our rights and freedoms."